So how do you want me to introduce you? Mufti or Sheikh?
لا.
إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, it's John Fontaine. Just before we begin the podcast, please make sure you click subscribe and also set your notifications. Also, if you'd like to support the podcast by supporting us financially with the equipment and the travel costs and the running costs, not just of the podcast, but also the other dawah activities I'm involved in, please support on the Patreon account. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam Rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to the Young Smirks podcast. It's me, John Fontaine, and I'm with Omar Sheikh. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. How's it going?
Good, alhamdulillah.
So we're here today with Omar, and Omar, you have a YouTube channel, a popular YouTube channel called Make It Hijrah. So I wanted to pick your brains today about some of your experiences and some of the knowledge that you have, on the topic, because I know you interview many people who have done Hijrah to many different places,
Right.
From the Far East to Africa to Europe to even within America and within the UK.
Right, yeah.
People just kind of trying to move to a better place, for the sake of Allah.
Right.
First of all, you're a convert to Islam.
Okay.
You're a convert to Islam. So,
My background, okay.
so how did you find Islam?
Well, I embraced Islam in 1994. So I don't know how many years that is now. But,
MashaAllah.
and actually, I embraced Islam while in high school. So I was still in high school in 1994 because I graduated in a thobe and everything. I decided to be different and put a kufi and a thobe on and walk across.
Subhanallah.
So, and people liked it actually. They thought it was different. But anyway, so I was in my last year of high school when I embraced Islam, and ever since my late teenage years, I always was trying to find out the purpose of life and why we're here, where we're going. What happens when we die. So I was just in and out of different philosophies, looking at things, researching things on a kind of like on a teenage level. Yeah. Right. So
It's before YouTube, right?
Yeah, before YouTube.
So how was you researching? What was the method?
The researching came through people, because people would come and say, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, and they'll give you the information, or I'm this, and they'll give you the information, and then you're interested, but you don't make the commitment.
Yeah.
And even I have friends that embrace Islam, and they would come and talk to me about Islam, and then give you some literature, because back then it was just hard copy literature you had to read. So Islam is really what convinced me. Like talking to them, they didn't do a lot of take me to the mosque or anything like that. They just would come and talk to me. I'd have my own philosophies of things, and then they would we'd debate about it, and I couldn't win a debate when it came to certain things about there being a creator, and even my idea, because I was kind of rebellious. I didn't obey the law, if you want to say. I didn't respect it, And then of course we have a history of slavery in the States for African Americans, so that made it even worse. So I didn't respect authority. If I wanted to take something, I take it. If I wanted to do this, I'll do it. It didn't matter to me. But this idea of there being a creator, and this creator is the one that gives us our direction and our guidance. And if we have a debate, we can return it back to what the creator tells us. It's you can't really refute that. I mean, if you believe in a creator, And I believed in a creator, by the way.
Okay. So what type of, you believed in a creator, but what type of, did you have a religion? Was it Christianity, or what type of thinking were you on at that time?
I guess I can say I was raised Christian.
Okay.
Right, but it wasn't strict. I didn't like to go to church. My mother would force me to go to church, and that type of thing. But at some point, she just gave up. But basically, it was a Christian philosophy. Even at an early age, they used to, when I go to these different summer camps and stuff, it's usually religious based. So they would try to scare you with hell and encourage you with heaven and this. So from an early age, I had that type of philosophy, right? But so it wasn't hard to understand it when Islam came. It just kind of clarified it, right? So I remember, it's interesting that you mentioned, that you asked that, because we had a house party, right? And he's a brother now, right? We both weren't Muslim, but he had a big Jesus statue, right? So the house party started and nobody was there, right? So we went to the Jesus statue, and it's weird. I don't know why we thought that, but we went to the Jesus statue and asked the Jesus statue to think of what we're asking. If this is a divine deity, we're asking this divine deity to bring the girls to the house party. So it's weird how we think. But anyway, that's what we did, and sure enough, people started coming to the house. It's weird. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that the statue had anything to do with it, but it's just how we thought about it. You know
what I would say about that? I would say it's possible the unseen world of the jinn could have inspired these people to come, because then you start having iman that this praying to this statue worked. A'udhu billah.
Yeah. So, but the thing about it, we got, let's just say, it worked. It didn't work, but let's say it worked. But at the end, we weren't grateful. It wasn't like we said, "Oh, now we're going to start, asking more." It didn't happen like that. It's just a weird, a relationship that people think they have with God. That they can ask God for things that God is not pleased with. Right, and He'll give it to them. So anyway, this person that we had the house party together. This person became Muslim before me. So he would be the one that would debate or clarify things for me. So I trusted him, So I had started to lean over more towards like Pan-Africanism, if you want to say, like, the African American struggle and that type of thing. So I would just go to him and I say, yo, I want to have, a part, like a speech in the park to talk about certain things and this. And then he would intelligently debate me on that. And is this a good idea and things like that. So he would give me Islamic concepts, to go along with that, so I can change the way I was thinking. And the thing was, I believed in Islam, but I didn't embrace it. Okay, so I would debate, like we would sit around drinking or whatever, and have religious debates, right? And so this guy, like he went to church his whole life, went to Sunday school, so he knew a lot about Christianity. And then I read a lot about, especially this is like the Ahmadiyya times where you have like this Christian Muslim debate type.
I'm familiar with them drunken high debates. You find funny enough, you actually get a lot of things out of them types of things, because you kind of speak the truth when you're under the influence, right, and everything just comes out.
So I believed in it. I didn't formally accept Islam. So what happened was, I had a friend that we would call each other cousins. We were real close, right? Our family close and everything, and after over time, these ideas really left me thinking about, okay, where am I going? Where am I headed here? So one day, I called up another friend. Actually, it was two friends. The first friend embraced Islam, and then the second friend embraced Islam. And the second friend was more like he really wanted me to become Muslim. So he would come to my house, because I went to juvenile. Okay, I went to juvenile for like 6 months or something like that, or something like that. Don't quote me, I can't remember. But I went to juvenile for an extended period of time. So when I came home, he was there, and he sat with us. Even though when we're thinking when we get out of juvenile is get high, whatever. But he came anyway, and he sat there and he talked to me, and so he was always there. He never gave up on me. So when I felt that things weren't going my way, whatever hustling I was trying to do or money I was trying to make, it wasn't working for me. I went back to him and I said, okay, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to become Muslim. This is not making sense for me. So at that point, I went down to, there's a brothers that had these stores. I went down to the store. It was Ramadan. Was it Ramadan? I believe it was Ramadan, like the end of Ramadan, right? So they were having iftar. So I went there, talked to them. It was other brothers there, and they were talking to me. And then I just embraced Islam at that point, you know. But I was convinced long before that.
Yeah.
And I would say anybody who really looks into it with a sincere heart will say, okay, yeah, there's something to this, right?
Definitely.
And even if they don't embrace right away, it's kind of like you find the right person that can discuss it with you. It's like it's nothing, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
It's, you know, when you compare it to anything, it's just superior to everything. You know, we're speaking, you know, about some of the solutions Islam has in different things. It was just impressive. You know, and I tried to do the same. I tried to refute Islam in the beginning from a Christian perspective, even though I wasn't a Christian. I never believed in it.
Right.
But it's just traditional Christian, you know.
Right.
And or culturally Christian, I should say. And yeah, it's very impressive, you know. And subhanAllah, so many people come into Islam all over the world. So, what part of the States were you from?
I'm from a city called Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And it's in a state called Wisconsin, and it's close to Illinois, which is Chicago. It's close to Chicago, so there's a lot of Chicago influence. Yeah. You know.
So what was the Muslim community like there? What type of Muslims were they?
Okay.
What was their background?
Okay, yeah. So in our city, you have there's a lot of segregation in our city, which means the blacks are here, the Latinos are here, the whites are here, so it's like that. And then you have some areas where there's a mix of people there, okay? So on the north side of the city, you had a place called the Dawah Center, which is primarily African-American, okay? And then on the south side of the city, you have a masjid that's built from the ground up and a school connected, and you know, this whole thing. And that was the Pakistani and Arab community. And then as time went on, you had places on the west and the east and all that. But generally, those were the major two places. So I was on the north side. So I was introduced to a place called the Dawah Center, which is like a converted, I don't know if you have them. It's like I don't want to say a strip mall because it's not a full mall, but like a strip that had different stores inside of it. So they converted the whole thing.
Knock it into one.
Yeah, they knocked it in and made a masjid out of it. Yeah, it's still there today. MashaAllah, it's still there today.
So, you've been Muslim for quite a while,
right?
And you spent a lot of time outside of the States since being a Muslim. So, at what point did you decide, you know, I'm going to leave, and why?
Okay, yeah. So, since I became Muslim in Ramadan, you had Taraweeh, right? And the brothers that I embraced Islam with, I would go to the masjid and hear these long recitations. I didn't know what was going on. Okay, so it's kind of a culture shock a little bit. And everybody would sit on the floor, and the khatib, the speaker, he would speak in English and Arabic and this. So I'm just like, you know, all right, I understand the basic part, but this part is a little bit, you know. And, you know, personally, I'm not the type of person that just like if you're talking, I don't understand, I want to know what you're saying, right? And especially in this case where you're talking about Allah saying this, right? So I really wanted to know, you know, what the words mean, at least a basic understanding, right? Because I wouldn't consider myself like a hardcore Talib al-Ilm or something. I'm not. But on a basic level, if Allah is saying something, I would like to at least have an understanding. So I met different people. I even met converts like myself that has or seemed to have at that time. Because if they say, Alhamdulillah, that's something, you know, because you don't know anything. So they appear to have some Arabic language and stuff like that. So I said, yeah, I really need to learn. So I tried to learn locally. And I got some basic things like have the Baytun and all that stuff, right? But I said, I need more. And at that time, this is the time when everyone was going overseas to study. There was a popular place in Syria that people would go, in Damascus, Egypt. You would have to get kind of a scholarship thing to go to Medina, you know, but basically the open places where you can just go into, Syria and Egypt. Of course, you have Morocco and other places, but it wasn't as famous. So I decided at that point, I said, okay, look, I need to learn Arabic or at least have a basic understanding. So I'm going to go ahead, inshallah, and go. No, actually, I wanted to go to Medina. In high school, when I was finishing high school, I would even tell the teacher, okay, I'm going to go to Medina. but I didn't have a way. So over time, I always had the intention to go, but it became clearer as time went on. Like once I started to make money and do things that I had to find other options that I can be kind of independent. That I don't have to wait on somebody to say, okay, you know.
So yeah, we just made a little switch because the sun was coming in, so take it away. So yeah, you were speaking about the reason why you made the switch initially was for educational reasons.
Right.
You know, you wanted to study, learn more about Islam, learn Arabic.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily like a fleeing something or leaving because of America. It's leaving to gain something, you know.
Right.
So at what point did you kind of start thinking about Hijrah and the topic of Hijrah? Because, you know, you've got your channel,
right?
Make Hijrah.
I dealt with a lot of Palestinians, Jordanians, Arabs in general, and you know, many of them left the Muslim world to go to the West, right, for whatever reasons. Sometimes it's not as political as we think. Sometimes it's just like it's grass is greener on the other side, really, to them, right? So they have this romanticized idea of what America is. And then the reality hits them because a lot of, let me speak specifically about the city I come from, because a lot of them work in the inner cities. So they witness the crime and the drugs and everything there. But then when they leave to close their stores, they go back to the neighborhoods, which are outside of those areas. So they get a dose of reality real quick about what America's really about. And for them, they get the money and they send it back home to build a house or whatever they're doing over there. So for me, I had no idea of what it would be like living in a Muslim world. So for me, it was just like, okay, let's go learn Arabic so we can understand what's going on. And but once you get there, you start to find how easy it is to practice your religion. If you were practicing in the States, over here it's 10 times. You know that. I mean, traveling around, that you can, you know, the van calls, you can go over here. Nobody's saying, wait a minute, you got to finish this, you know. And a lot of times, I mean, every situation I was in, if the van called or I wanted to pray or anything, no problem. Even the people in high positions had a little prayer mat in their office, and they just, it was time to pray, they just put it down and they pray. And so it wasn't strange, because I found myself like prayer time come in, and I have to go pray out in public in the grass or something, and people just looking at you, you know, like, what is he doing? So that realization made me say, okay, why would I? By the way, I'm not a dawah carrier. Like, I'm not somebody that's, you know, I would tell people about Islam, but I'm not like, I don't make that like something that I'm really into. I don't feel like I've attained enough information to do that in a good way. So there was, that reason wasn't there, like to go back to the States to give dawah or something like that. It wasn't, I didn't have that. So it didn't make any sense at all for me to go back to the States and have these problems that I was facing and the problems that I left. And to add to that, my children. Okay, so I had small children. Like, okay, what do I want for them? Because I know I already experienced that, and it's getting worse. Like when I was young, it was like this. Now it's something totally different. So to raise them in that environment.
When you look at it now, 14, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it's fine now compared to what it is now. You know, the way it's changed now.
Right,
SubhanAllah.
Because
you'd be happy if it was like it was.
Right. You're right about it. Here's an example, and it's maybe controversial, and you can edit it out, but I would go back and forth to the States. I would, right? And you would look on a television show, and you'll see the difference between 10 years ago or whatever and now. Like the homosexuality stuff, the immoral stuff, even if you leave off the homosexual stuff, just what they're like, it's like kind of like a slow digression. You know, it started here, it was little, it was innocent and subtle, and then it just became like hardcore, you know. Now they want to force you to agree, and if you don't agree, then they'll cancel you.
Of course, you know, living in different countries is not perfect.
Right.
It has its challenges.
Yes.
Not everything's perfect as well.
Right. Well, see, the thing is that you can control your environment much better. Like, I don't have to accept what other people push into my sphere. I can control it, so I can control access to what my children look at and what they listen to. I can control it, and not in a bad way. Like, it's not like they feel like they missed out on anything. It's that, okay, look, here's what I want you to take a look at. Look at the fact that everybody you see over here has their wife and their children and there's families here. Marriage is important. Okay, you like that boy, you like that girl, okay, get married. And there's no kickback about that. It's not them saying, no, I don't want to. This is how you were raised, and this is what you see around you.
There's still a huge focus, especially in the Muslim lands, of family.
Right.
And the thing with the West, because they're becoming irreligious, they're even not Christian anymore. They live in Christianity. They still don't even have any kind of religious values.
Right.
So what's the biggest thing you've kind of learned through your travels, and how did you kind of perceive the outside world from America, and how was it different?
One of the biggest takeaways is that because you have different levels of practicing Muslim, right? You have born Muslim, that's Muslim by name, Muslim, they're not really concerned. And then you have people that take their religion very seriously, right? So for that person, any edge that you can get in practicing your religion that makes things easier is good for you, right? So going to a Muslim country, if you're looking for that, you can find it very easily, and you can just go ahead and go with the flow, right? So that's, to me, is the biggest takeaway. That, okay, I want to practice Islam. It's not like I'm forced to. I want to, and I want my family to be a Muslim family. So to help me with that, let me get around other Muslim families. Let me get around Muslims that if I'm slipping, they can, push me back, So again, that's the biggest takeaway I have, that and that I've learned is that if you want to be practicing, the environment is very important.
How do, like, Americans who have not traveled much, a lot of the time they don't leave their state, or they don't,
not even the city.
Many people don't even leave the country.
Not even the neighborhood sometimes.
And so the kind of perception of Asia and Africa and Arabia, there's like people living in deserts, people living in jungle, and kids with flies on their face, stuff like that. So I mean, did you kind of have that kind of?
Well, the good thing is I had people that went ahead of me. So, and I did have that. Early on, I did think I would never go to Africa. For what? And that's because of how we were raised, and what the perception they gave us of Africa, which is famine and poor people, starvation, and then we the ones that giving charity to them, and that unless you want to be what do you call it, a charity organization, there's no reason for you to go to Africa, period, or other places, even Middle East or in these places. We always think that we're better in a better circumstance. So why would we leave our better circumstance to go there, right? And that's how we were taught. And even when you learn about Africa, they give you these small groups there that you would probably never see ever if you went, right? People with the bows and the long ears or whatever type of tradition they had, naked. Everybody's naked and with hay or whatever, straw. This is the impression we had. Why would you go there? Why? Why would you travel there even? And so that, I don't know if it was intentional, but I did feel that way, But once you start to open your mind and talk about it, even we had Africans in the States. You'll meet Africans, and you would make fun of them with that stuff, right? But they, unfortunately, a lot of times, at least in my experience, they never said, no, it's not really like that. It's like this. They just went along with it, making fun, laugh, and that's it. Nobody clarified,
So, you've got your Make Hijrah website, the YouTube, and you've been interviewing different people who have made that leap. And what I like about YouTubers, you've interviewed people from different backgrounds and also who have moved to different places, from the Far East, Malaysia, Indonesia, Africa, Arabia, so it's a good mix of different kind of experiences, cultures, and even types of Islam,
right.
in a broader sense. So what are some of the things you've learned from interviewing and traveling from some of your guests?
I learned that everyone has their reason for traveling, right? And you can't say that one place is the end-all place for everyone, right? And one person's ideal place is another person's nightmare, right? And I've witnessed that. There was one case of a person that came to Egypt from Brunei. Now, anyone that knows that area would say is much more advanced and much more organized and clean and, cleaner than Egypt, right?
Yeah.
So he came to Egypt and he was just disgusted. He said, how can you live here? And, what are you doing here? Why don't you, find another place or this? But for us, it was like we were very happy.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is like you can come from a place in the UK that's just a beautiful place and it's your home, right? So if you go from there to there, you'll say, okay, why would I ever live in this place? But then you have another case where I come from a place that's beautiful. Wisconsin is like farms and grass and green and everything. But then I also come from a city that's crime ridden. So now it's like, okay, let's say I love the city because I was born there, but is this the best place to raise my family? So my perspective would be different than another person's perspective. And they might, and that person that says, okay, I want to practice my religion somewhere else, they may choose a different place than Egypt, for example. They might choose Malaysia or Indonesia or Kuwait or... And I'm sure you've seen that in your travels,
Yeah, definitely. There's not one place you can say this is the best place to live as a Muslim,
Right.
Because it also comes down to not just Islamic environment, it's your capabilities as well.
Right.
How much can you afford?
Right.
I mean, if we've all got unlimited funds, you can choose wherever you want to go, but that's not the reality, is it?
No.
And also passport reasons. Where will you be allowed to stay?
Right.
Where can you rent or buy property? Language barriers, that type of thing.
Right.
And I think each country has its benefits.
Right.
But like you say, I mean, it's easier to kind of be negative about a place because obviously, like I'm from England, so England has a lot of good things, good benefits about it, which other countries don't have. And you can kind of pick out them things and say, well, this country's not good because of that. But at the same time, I'm not going to lose my kids in this country.
Right.
If my kids are in the UK, it's dangerous. You want to live with a Muslim community, sadly. You live in a very poor area, lots of gangs and drugs and crime. You want to live in a good area, a peaceful area. Kids are going to be raised with non-Muslims, maybe become atheists.
Right.
It's like, a rock and a hard place.
Right.
So it's like, at the end of the day, it's a test. There's going to be trials and tests, and you kind of got to weigh it up each section. Right. So coming to that, from your experience, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I want to kind of ask you, you might not have been to these countries, but maybe you've interviewed people.
Right.
Some people living in Western countries, of course, if you're like Pakistani, if you have a back home, I would say personally, the number one place you should think about or consider is back home. If you're Pakistani, go and check out Pakistan. Pakistan's great, by the way.
Yeah.
I've been there.
You been?
Yeah. Beautiful place, mashallah. Every city is like a different country.
Right.
So much culture and it's very safe in parts. Some parts are not.
Right.
But obviously, if you have a back home, if you're from Africa or Pakistan or Arabia, wherever, that should be the first option, really. If you want to look at alternatives.
Right.
But for people like ourselves who are converts, what would you? Of course, again, people are looking for different things. Some people want to study. Some people want a safe place to live. Right. Some people are thinking about their kids. There's many reasons for that as well. But what are your kind of top 3 destinations you might kind of recommend people check out? Right. If they're thinking about alternative places.
Okay, let me break it up into 2 categories, right? Let's say the seeker of knowledge. Okay. The seeker of knowledge should go everywhere, right? And this could be a bit controversial, but you have to have a broad scope. The dean is not like this pigeonholed like that. It's like we can have a small library of books that we never can read in our lives, like that amount. And that's just a small one. Like think about the huge libraries of Islamic knowledge that are there and the years and years of Islamic heritage that we have. Like there's no way. So a real seeker of knowledge should travel around and find people that they can study with in different subjects and different sciences, right? Mauritania is great, right? And again, people will have their opinions, but Mauritania is great because they still have a lot of scholars, you know, and things are set up there and they help you, like, and the people are supportive for this. So Mauritania would be definitely a good option. And then that would probably be first. And I know that's a controversy because people love Saudi Arabia, but I'm just being honest from my personal opinion. Secondly would be, I would say Egypt.
For students, you mean?
For students, right. Because Egypt has a lot of history and there's a lot sciences now. And then once you and Sudan as well is there, right? And then some would even argue, but let's just keep it there, right? And then I would go with Saudi Arabia. And I know that's controversial, I already know, right? But I'm talking about hardcore students that want to memorize, these environments are great for that, and you can find many different people to study with. And then when you go to, let me backtrack. If you're going to Saudi Arabia to study with scholars, like you have Arabic and all that. So bear that in mind, what I'm saying. The Western person, convert person that needs the foundational stuff first, Mauritania is great, number 1. Egypt, language, Quran, great. Sudan as well. Then if you went to Saudi Arabia, you can sit in a circle and you can benefit from what's going on there. If you have access to there first, which is sometimes difficult, then maybe you can go there. But I don't know about their foundational things, like your Arabic language. A lot of people start Arabic somewhere else and then come there. Okay, so those are the 3 from that perspective. Living perspective, I would say Malaysia has been the best place I've been living-wise. I'm talking about cost of living. I'm talking about community. It reminds me of the States. When I say that, I'm talking about the community in the States, like, because most things in the States are based around the masjid. So everyone gathers at the masjid like a community center almost. So if in Ramadan, it's like iftar is there and it's communal, right? Because throughout the week, you're somewhere else going to work and everything. In Malaysia, we had that same type of vibe. During Ramadan, it was like, bam, everybody's out, they're welcoming, your children running around, their children running around. You didn't feel like you're
very
different.
Peaceful as well.
Oh, it's peaceful.
Very safe,
And it's a lot to say, like, and this might sound bad again. If anybody has a problem with what I'm saying, just talk to me.
Yeah, no, this is your opinions. I don't mean, from your experience.
But you know how some people feel that, oh, he said, and they want to go and refute you somewhere instead of just talking to you, right? But in Egypt, you'll find the knowledge, but sometimes the knowledge doesn't match what you see in the street, right? And that's problematic, right? In Malaysia, what I found was that the manners that Islam promotes are in the people. Right. Have you been to Malaysia?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I know where you're going. Egypt's very rough and tough, and even without anyone touching you, you feel like you're being beat down. But with Malaysia, very gentle, great manners, and
Now that's on the surface level. So I'm not talking about where you didn't go into the house and this that. But I'm kind of a person that's like I look at it.
I want to make it clear as well. You know, so I found this. I took Shahada officially in Egypt, and the family who hosted me and everything, the best manners in the world. You know, we're talking about everyday on the street hustle and bustle. We're not talking about families in the house,
individuals.
Because once you get into the family in Egypt, you know, subhanallah, you know, it's Islam, and but you're talking about general the culture, a lot more tougher.
Yeah, I'm not talking about specific people. It's just in general. If you go there, this is what you'll find.
But I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. So even this is an interesting story. We're in a restaurant, right? And the restaurant had these chairs, these plastic chairs that I don't know if you only find them here, right? In these places, right? But they're like the legs are like they can.
Yeah, they bend out.
They bend out. So I'm sitting there, and the chair keeps giving out, right? So I'm pressing on the table to prevent it from falling. So this happens like 3 times. Right? On the 3rd time, I can't get the grip on the table, so I fall back. Right? I catch myself, but I fall back onto this guy's wife, right? And I'm like, I'm sorry, this is, if in Egypt it'd be a fight, but here the guy looked at me, smiled, and said, no problem. But that's their manners. That's the man. Like he doesn't want to fight. Like he wants to see, okay, was this an accident, or did you do it on purpose, or whatever? And the wife even
felt good of you. It automatically they presume good.
Yeah, they think like, okay, I know you didn't mean to do that. No problem. Go ahead. You know what I mean? So yeah, the Malaysian manners.
I mean, it wouldn't have anything to do with you being like a 6 foot American like.
No. Because actually they're not scary, by the way. That might be a misconception because a lot of them are small people in that, but they're not. No. But again, like all the interactions I had, I have to really think about it if I can think of a situation where a person had bad manners. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but on the general, Malaysia is great. On top of that, it's modern. And it's consistently modern. Like you can go from one point of the country to another point of the country and it's consistent on that. That doesn't mean there's no villages or this stuff. There are, but I'm saying generally the infrastructure, if you're going on the highway somewhere, it's consistent, from point A to point B.
One thing about Malaysia, one of the downsides, which have kind of happened more recently, is the visa situations.
Right.
Especially with the COVID, they've been very difficult in terms of allowing people to, who have visas to leave and come back. And so this is also something.
Yeah, there's something. I think it's going to ease up in the future. Inshallah, this is what I think. But I thought that too a few years ago that it would ease up. It didn't. But it's possible that it would ease up. But Malaysia definitely it's a beautiful country, beautiful landscape, just natural beauty. And
I liked Malaysia. I enjoyed my time there. I enjoyed meeting the people. For me personally, it's just not a culture that I connect with. It's not something I really enjoy. If you know what I mean. Like I love being in Arabia, Khalij, or I love being in Africa.
Right.
Anywhere in Africa. Anywhere in Arabia. It's just what I like. So people have to take them things into consideration.
Yeah,
food as well.
Yeah.
Malaysia. They got good food.
That's the thing. Like what I'm saying is Omar's opinion.
Yeah.
So you can take it and throw it. Right. Because your opinion may be different, not you, but just people watching will say, no, I hate him. I know a guy said he cried because he wanted to leave Malaysia. So I didn't cry. But remember,
But you cried because you were leaving.
I'm crying because on top of that, I spent a lot of time in Egypt. So it was kind of a breath of fresh air. Because if you spend too much time in a place, you think all places are like this. Like that's why in the beginning, like the first year, I went to Syria, I went to Jordan, so I can see. As a matter of fact, we landed in Jordan on the way to Egypt, and we was like, "Yo, this is okay." Then when we got off the plane to Egypt, we said, "What is this about?" Because you had the people. Egyptians are, I love Egyptians, man. I'm not gonna, but they're.
You actually look like an Egyptian.
Yeah.
You look like my friend, actually.
Uh,
Yeah, it's funny.
so, I mean, what I mean by that is like when you get off the plane, they're like aggressive, like, but it's just in other countries as well. But in Egypt, especially, like you say no, it doesn't matter. They just keep going. You need a taxi, you need a, and to some people that might be off-putting, you know, they might feel like it's a bit too aggressive. I said no, but also it's desert, so of course it's dusty. You know, some people may not, you know, feel comfortable with that, and then like it's a lot of pollution. The city is crowded, and in certain areas are just ridiculously crowded, you know. So it's those things that might put people off. But then you have to kind of dig deeper and see, well, okay, why am I here?
Yeah.
You know, but they have newer cities and stuff like that for people. But anyway, the first is Malaysia. I spent time, that was coming from Egypt though. So somebody coming from somewhere else might look at Malaysia and say no.
Yeah.
But because I came from Egypt and spent a lot of time there, I felt Malaysia was a breath of fresh air for life, for just to live, right? And then plus I'm not a person that's always out and all that, walking around and stuff. So, and the housing and stuff was affordable and everything. Second would be I want to say UAE. I want to say UAE, but it's not cheap. It's not, you know, all that cheap stuff is out the window.
I think UAE is one of the best options if you are teaching, if you have a job.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get very high pay.
Yeah.
Tax-free.
Right.
You know, high living.
Right.
And especially young families.
Right.
You know, your kids will be all right. But it's not final destination.
Right.
You're not going to buy property. Well, you can now actually, but you know, the Gulf countries are never final destination. You're not going to get a passport. You're not going to get.
Right.
You know, at some point, you have to go home or go somewhere else. You know, I know what you mean about UAE. I love UAE. I stayed there for a while.
Yeah.
I love specifically the East Coast, Khorfakan, Fujairah, Hatta. Beautiful. Yeah. People just think about Dubai, UAE. Dubai is good. Of course, there's fitna there. Right. But it's not like UK, you know.
Right.
But people don't explore the UAE. They just think Dubai, and there's so many places in UAE. It's a huge country, you know. But I know what you mean about UAE.
UAE.
Yeah.
Again, this is okay. I'm excluding some Gulf countries, right?
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because if you want to live temporarily, right? Even UAE, people will say it's temporarily, but there are brothers that stay there, like have grandchildren there. So, and there, same with Saudi Arabia. There are people that have been there for years and years and years. But I hear that, this is just what I hear, that you can be all of a sudden told to leave, you know? Yeah. So if you're talking about a temporary, if you're able to go temporary, you should just go explore. Yeah. You know, if you want to settle for a period of time, this is what I'm saying with these places like Malaysia and this, because people argue Malaysia, they don't speak Arabic. Actually, they most of the Islamic studies and everything is in their own language, and they don't care what you think about it. You know,
Indonesia, a lot of people speak Arabic in Indonesia.
Yeah, so actually a lot of people that came from Yemen and different places from studying and stuff like that, and they're in Yemen and established there. I mean, they're in Indonesia and they're established there. I haven't been personally, but I hear you have to. The English is out. Is not. You been there?
No, it's not. The Indonesian.
You've been to Indonesia?
Struggle with the English, but the Arabic they're very good with.
Yeah.
So you've been in Turkey now for a week?
Right? No, it's only been maybe about 3 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're exploring. You're checking the place out.
Right.
What do you think of it so far? What's your first impressions?
Okay.
You've been to different cities, you know, and different vibes. And
I like Turkey. Okay. But again, it's coming from the perspective of living. It's not from the perspective of studying. I'm not saying you can't study somewhere, but from a living perspective, I actually love Turkey. It's beautiful. It's clean. You have masajid everywhere, which I didn't really expect to see. Like I'm talking about if you're driving.
Yeah.
And you look over here, it's a big masjid here, big masjid over there. It's everywhere they have masajid. So it's kind of like if you wanted to move in somewhere, you can just go to a masjid and then come out from there. Like, okay, look in the neighborhoods around it.
That's what I did.
Important. Yeah.
I picked the best masjid I like and just
mashallah. Look, you come down over there.
Yeah.
It's a few minutes away and you're there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would love that.
Yeah.
You know, I would love that. So that's the thing about Turkey. And then it's a diverse. Like here, you have these. See, you remember in Malaysia how the mountains are?
Yeah.
They're like green mountains like this, right?
Yeah.
And in other parts, they're like just mountains, like Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
You know, so you have these options actually. Like, okay, I like this view. I like this landscape. I like how they built up on the hills and and then you have flat land that you could.
You got like Mediterranean beach down there. You got Syrian, the border of Syria, Gaziantep. It's like desert. It's like you're in Sham, you know. So so many options.
Yeah, and even the coastal places.
Yeah,
and even the weather options. Like if you want really warm weather, you can go here. If you want it, like you want to see the seasons, you can go here. Like Turkey, mashallah. And then this has the history. It has history. That if you can, like, you probably wouldn't run out of things to do. Like even in maybe smaller cities, you can say, okay, this was the Sultan used to live over up the hill, or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can get like some historical perspective of what's going on. So, and of course, there are seculars and all that stuff, and there's political stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like you're on the ground. Like I'm here in this neighborhood. I don't really care what the secular guy is doing down there. You know, so just
and even the people that are not religious, they're not attacking you for your religion. They're not bothering you with your beard or your niqab or your hijab. You just get about your business.
Yeah, you're right.
And
you're right. I mean, they have areas that are like I can't think of the names, bro. It's in Istanbul outside, but areas that are like primarily like most of the people are foreigners there. Yeah. And you can see it on the street when you go there.
The Sharrer, I think it's called.
Yeah.
A lot of Westerners.
A lot of foreigners, a lot of Arabs or whoever, you know, that are there. That if you feel more comfortable in an environment like that, it's available. You know, so I'm still exploring. I'm still learning, but I really like Turkey. I really like. Oh yeah, another thing, visas.
Crazy.
So if I did that list again, Malaysia wouldn't be at the top of the list if you include. Because you can get the visa, and they have many options. And same with UAE, they just invent new options, you know, as you go. Especially if you do business and stuff like that, you can get into the free zone and blah blah blah, you know, that stuff. But here, you don't have to do all that. You don't have to do all that. You can get residency. You get a 2-year contract on your rental, and then you can get residency, and then you can take it from there. You can buy property. You can get a passport even. Yeah. So that idea of Hijrah is even more realistic if you're looking at Turkey. Yeah. You know, and then another thing is important, besides the extremes, right? You can kind of create your environment. Yeah. And but you have to go according to the rules. Like you can't just pop up and just think, we're gonna take over this, and not like that. But if you follow the rules, you can have a nice little community of expats. Yeah. You know. Yeah. And enjoy your stay there.
Yeah, there's some communities doing really well. I heard the Somali community is doing pretty well.
I can imagine.
And you know they're really getting it together. Yeah. And you know, you got these little pockets of Westerners, you know, coming together, and it's nice, you know. Yeah. And subhanallah. It's I hope you enjoy your stay, and
yeah, man.
It's a
Thanks for hosting us, by the way, man. I know you probably didn't want that out there, but
don't tell anyone I hosted you, because they all want hosting. But yeah, man, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've really enjoyed your company.
Yeah, man, me too.
And and the brothers here as well. Yeah. And you know, I'd really welcome you, and I'd love you to be my neighbor, inshallah. Yeah, man. So I mean, I'll make it easier for you and older people as well who are tuning in. Check out Omar's website, Make Hijrah. On the YouTube, makehijrah.com, and also the YouTube channel. There's so many interviews on there. Brothers from different backgrounds going to different places with different perspectives, different challenges. And, you know, just plan,
Yeah.
do istikhara, make your planning, save your money, and try. You know, I mean, what have you got to lose?
You mind if I ask you a question?
No.
I don't know if people know how well traveled you are, right? I mean, what advice would you give? I'm just curious, you know, how is your travel, you being able to travel and see different people and meet different, be in different cultures, etc. How has that affected your mindset in terms of, has it broadened your scope in dealing with Muslims in general? Or what do you think?
It definitely broadened my scope in terms of understanding Islam. You know, how broad Islam is. Like you said, it's not just a pigeonhole. It's not just one country that produces scholars.
Right.
And it's not just one country with scholars on the correct Islam. You know, also there's a big, I think culture is really underestimated. And I think culture is a really important part of Muslims. You know, because like with the Western culture now, where they're leaving the Christian religion and their old culture, their old values, they're losing it, and they're losing their way now. Where the Islamic culture, like you mentioning, whether you've got secular people in Pakistan or Turkey or their culture is still so heavily influenced by Islam.
Right.
It's like in their blood.
Right.
You know, like their manners are, you know, you speak to people in Pakistan who they're not religious at all, but they're so religious, and you know they practice so moral, and they have good values, and you know, so culture is very important.
Right.
And us being converts, coming from, you know, a culture of kufr, you know, yeah, our parents may have raised us well to a certain extent, but we don't have that moral guidance. So, you know, anyway, to the point of traveling, I've traveled a lot. You know, I've been to over 75 countries last time I looked, and me, I like Arabia, I like Africa. I see the benefits of places like Malaysia, Indonesia, and I think these are great places for people to live. So I think it depends a lot also on your financial capability. What can you afford?
Right.
You know, what your education level is. Do you have qualifications to be able to live in the Middle East? Because if you don't, you can't just go and live in the Middle East if you don't have a lot of money. You know, you can make it work in places like Egypt, you know. And people will be surprised that Africa is also and can be expensive.
Yeah, it can.
If I had my choice, me personally, for what I like, what I do, because a lot of my dawah works in Africa, I would live in Africa. But it's very expensive, surprisingly expensive.
Yeah.
Places like Turkey, great infrastructure. Your children will be safe.
Right.
And for me personally, I'm not looking for a place to study. I'm looking for a place to house my family peacefully. My children won't be attacked with their Islam. They'll be able to grow up, not feeling inferior culturally, which is a problem you find in the UK, where even some Pakistani communities, they have this inferiority complex of the English white people. You know, they're always second-class citizens. Same in America, different communities. You know, so, and that has a big impact on the children, psychologically.
Right. Yeah.
So places like Turkey, they're not going to be bullied for their Islam. I'd rather them receive racism than be bullied for them being Muslim. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
But when you're attacked for being Muslim, this is why I find people being shy or embarrassed of being Muslim, and I don't ever want my children to have that.
Right.
You know, so again, it depends who you are, your financial capabilities. It also depends on your own culture, where you fit in.
Right.
Because, you know, as a white guy, I'm not going to fit in certain areas.
Right.
As a black guy, you're not going to fit in certain areas. It's just simple as that.
Right.
I can't live in certain places because you could get kidnapped. You could, it could be dangerous for you.
Right.
Same for you.
Right.
You'd have a scope of places that will be open for you. So
Right.
I think everyone needs to, look at their own situation, think about what they need, priorities. Is it studying, children, finance, and go there on your own first. Don't just pack up and take your family and think, Bismillah, I'm living on istikhara.
Right.
I've seen people do that. You have to plan.
Right.
And go and check it out. Do your research. If you're the head of the household, fly on your own.
Right.
Go and check it out. Get things sorted before you start,
Right.
moving the family around. Because it can be very expensive to move around as well.
Right.
That's just some thoughts. We could talk about this all day, but yeah.
But you know what though? With this, I'll make it brief. There's a cycle that's starting, and Allah knows best how it will go. But the cycle is, for converts in particular, they embrace Islam, and then they start a family, and then they begin to lose their children.
Yeah.
Right. But remember, you were David, and your son is Muhammad.
Yeah.
You embrace Islam. He had, but Muhammad now is in an environment where his people are the people in the neighborhood, the people at school, the people of this. So now you have Muhammad being influenced by that, and then Muhammad starts to leave off some of the things he was taught or raised with, and then he becomes just like David, another guy. Right. So you start to lose. And I've seen this. This is not just a theory. I've seen people just lose their family in one generation. Yeah. Right. And then other people, they're coming from overseas. They're coming from Muslim countries to non-Muslim countries. And all those years, even if they weren't practicing, they had an Islamic identity. And they didn't know anything else. Like family values, this. It was all just handed down. And they just kept it going. The minute they moved over there, now they have their children being raised in this environment, and they start to just lose it, right? And it might go one more generation, and then finally it's just gone, right? So anybody who's concerned with that and wants to break that cycle, it's an excellent idea to consider another country or a Muslim country. That way you can some would argue it doesn't matter, legacy, okay, when I die, it's over. But at the end, don't you want people that can pray for you?
Definitely.
Don't you want to be able to have that on your record that you raised a Muslim family and you cared, because you could have took them in any direction. But we decided we want to be Muslims and practice Islam, and we want to have our families on Islam and keep that going. Do you see what I mean? Yeah,
I totally agree. If it's possible. And the other thing I want to mention as well, I think we have to be realistic as well, that not everyone is going to be able to do Hijrah.
Yeah, you're right about that.
And we don't make them feel guilty for that. These communities back in England and America, where the communities also have to start making efforts to try and organize themselves, live closer together around the masjid, try to, buy property. I know that might seem out of reach, but rich Muslims need to come and give these poorer Muslims mortgages. Start getting the generational wealth, getting people to own properties so they can be more financially independent.
Right.
But making the most of your community at home as well. It's all right, you live in 20 minutes away from the masjid and worrying why you're calling me to give dawah to your 18-year-old son. Try and control your children's upbringing as much as you can. By Hijrah might be moving from one city to the other. It might be moving from one part of the city closer to the masjid. As an example.
I got you.
So, it's we can't expect I don't know how many million Muslims in America and England, but there's got to be at least 5 million. You can't expect a mass migration of 5 million, But for those of you who have the ability, try it. May Allah make it easier for everyone. The bottom line is, as Muslims, we should be trying to make the best and the most of what we've got.
you know, we should have these conversations more.
Definitely.
Just generally.
Well, that's why you have to move here, so we can speak more.
But even people in their communities,
Yeah.
they can have these conversations. It's not like you're going to a place that's in some abandoned area or destroyed area.
Jazakallah khair. I've enjoyed the conversation, not just on camera, but
off camera.
You know, it's been nice to meet you. And
yeah, bro. We'll be in touch for sure, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Just before I go, don't forget to check out makehijrah.com and also the YouTube. I'll put the links in the description, and just go browsing. You know, check out some of the interviews. You'll get some benefit, and may Allah make it easy. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء